Welcome back to Night City. We have a ton of news about Cyberpunk to talk about, but more importantly, the future of CD Projekt Red, as CD Projekt Red is going to be revealing its new strategy on March 30th. This is very important to the company, to of course Cyberpunk 2077, and any other franchise they are going to be looking into creating or investing in. Also, this is important to, yes, the Witcher franchise. So, we're also going to be looking at another important topic here. Where in the world is patch 1.2? That's a big question a lot of you are wondering. And also a more optimistic look at Cyberpunk's future. Could it actually turn out to be a good game in the long run? And players discover another cut feature. And you better believe it, I'm going over your top comments. Hey everyone, what's happening? Open World Games here. Hope you're doing good, and let's dive into the latest happenings around Cyberpunk, beginning right here. So CD Projekt Red is going to be revealing something new here on March 30th. The article comes from NintendoSmash.com. It says, after the not-so-successful release of Cyberpunk 2077, CD Projekt is going through difficult times. The game does not have the multi-million-dollar sales forecast by analysts, and the position of the company itself, both globally and in Poland, has been visibly shaken. Now, for 5 years in a row, CD Projekt has received the highest award of the Gildoa Spota Roku ranking. Apologies if I mispronounced that. Its winners are chosen by stock market analysts, investments, and management consultants, representatives of offices, pensions, and investment funds. Now, it says this year, CD Projekt not only lost the title of the best company in the stock market, and with its potential investments in the general list of nominees out of 120 companies, it was only in 61st place. What a drop. Among game studios, 10 Square Games, 8th place, and 11-bit studios at 10th place took the highest positions. Now, CD Projekt has already announced that it will hold a conference call for businesses, funds, investors, and financial analysts on March 30th. There, it will announce its new strategy for the coming years. Now, the company is not forgetting about disgruntled players. Hopefully not. It says, after CD Projekt presented some innovations of the anticipated patch 1.2, the forum fans brought down the Cyberpunk rating on Steam even more. So, yeah, a lot of you guys were disappointed so far with what is being said is going to be included in patch 1.2. Of course, we have yet to see the full patch notes, so keep that in mind as well. So hopefully this patch impresses, but don't hold your breath. As you guys may remember, the lead gameplay designer for Cyberpunk has actually left the studio officially. So that's got to put some sort of constraint on developing these patches, of course. Now, a lot of you guys are wondering, one of the things that I'm noticing in the community is where in the world is the patch? Man, they are really stretching out this second half of March release date. This was posted by Atmosphere. He says they also specified that they'll be sharing the patch notes prior to release. I mean, are they still stuck in testing or something? It wouldn't surprise me since the game has been nothing but test run after test run. So a lot of frustrations in this post right here, and I feel you. I really do. Now, in other Cyberpunk news, Cyberpunk was actually nominated for BAFTA awards, several nominations, but it did not take home any awards at all. So you could see, I feel like the damage was done, and I felt like BAFTA, they were not going to give any awards to a game that saw such controversy at launch, and honestly, that makes a lot of sense. So yeah, but at the same time, there are some really cool things about Cyberpunk. Don't get me wrong, the design of the city is absolutely beautiful, but it's got to be working right to actually enjoy it. Now, also, here's an interesting article about how Cyberpunk 2077 probably won't be another Anthem. And this one actually comes from Game Rant and is a more optimistic look at the potential future of Cyberpunk 2077. And the big, conversation here is the fact that Anthem, it's online only. Cyberpunk is single player. So that gives it a lot more potential for actually being fixed in the future. Let's take a look at the article right now, shall we? It says, of course, while it is always good to assume the best, sometimes players should prepare for the worst. Cyberpunk has a roadmap, as lackluster as it may seem, and there are PS5 and Xbox Series X versions of the game forthcoming. There is single-player DLC for the game, and a lot of this could bring the game into a better light if done correctly. But in preparing for the worst, if future development of Cyberpunk 2077 is canceled, it still wouldn't end up much like Anthem. Yeah, we'll see. It says again, this is a single-player game versus a live service looter shooter. Anthem's cancellation is just the beginning of the end for. Eventually, one day, Anthem servers will shut down too. The game will essentially be no more. On the other hand, Cyberpunk being a single-player game means that to whatever stage CD Projekt Red gets the game or working, it'll remain. Hopefully, it gets far enough that it comes back to the PlayStation Store. It better, but between the other platforms, its performance on PC and physical copies, Cyberpunk won't really end. For now, fans really just have to see what becomes of this game, but while the game's beginning is like Anthem all over again, the end doesn't have to be. Now, one thing you have to remember that, yeah, you know, this game will be around essentially forever. It does not require the online server, so the good news about that is the modders and the mod teams could really dig in and make this game into something absolutely amazing. We've seen that with the Fallout games, Skyrim, of course, modders doing absolutely incredible things. So perhaps there is a future in that regard if this game loses support. But CD Projekt Red claims that they are going to be digging in and going all in with fixing this game, despite the fact that they are actually losing leadership, like the lead gameplay designer. So we'll see what happens. You know, I've heard this story many times. I wasn't surprised when Anthem was completely canceled, honestly, after how much leadership they lost. If they continue to lose leadership, that's going to be a massive red flag for Cyberpunk going forward. Now, this is an interesting one. Cyberpunk 2077 players upset after discovering another cut feature. It says a new Cyberpunk update has fans divided, of course, and now Reddit post has even more frustrated to release. Okay, so we're not going to go over all of this. We'll dive straight into the cut feature. It says, a bit strange and disappointing that the shooting range has been removed from the game, and he highlights how there's signs here around Night City and the fact that the shooting range does not exist at all. You got to see the shooting range in one of the missions, but that was it. Is it a really important feature, considering that this is an RPG and you could really use the shooting range to determine numbers and things like that? Yeah, it would be super important. The Division 2 has a shooting range where you can do all sorts of stuff and mess around and goof off before heading out into the field. So considering that this is an RPG, I think that a shooting range would have been really, really cool, and I feel for you all as we get run over by a freaking truck. Damn. But all right, let's keep going. It is time to go over your top comments. Remember, leave a comment down below. It could end up right here in a future video. Now, my last video was definitely not good news. It was about the fact that the lead gameplay designer actually left CD Projekt Red, which is definitely gut-wrenching. I actually put a sad face in the top comment, in the comments there. But Travis says this: they should have stuck with their first idea on how they were going to create the game. Yeah, you know, there were actually 2 iterations to Cyberpunk 2077. And it seemed like when they brought in Keanu Reeves, everything changed. And they were like, how do we get Keanu Reeves into as much content in this game as possible, including side missions, all sorts of stuff. So I do feel like that perhaps that did impact the game. Of course, I think Keanu Reeves is freaking badass. He's one of my favorite actors, don't get me wrong. Ines Mert Fidden says, God, I'm trying my hardest not to lose my hope on this game. And so many of you are trying your best not to lose hope. And so many of you, I can feel it, are still kind of rooting for this game. You want to see a comeback like No Man's Sky had. I am in the same boat as you all, I swear. I'm just like hoping something amazing happens. Even if it's like in a year. If I hear in a year that there's like this amazing change. But right now, considering what they have shown so far with patch 1.2 being so underwhelming, I'm really worried. Alan goes on to say the following: we all know there's a few high apples who are to blame. Yeah, it says, and then Mike Sexton says, when the kid who did most work on the group project drops out of school, that's how I feel with the fact that the lead gameplay designer left. Now, some of you were also saying maybe this is a good thing that the lead gameplay designer quit because the game did end up being a mess. Perhaps it was his fault. I feel like they were mostly understaffed. I've seen the games that fell at launch. That being the reason, the secret reason, honestly, is just because the company isn't willing to go further into investing. A lot of the investment with these big AAA games goes into the marketing as opposed to the development, QA, and all that stuff. Anna B says, funny how modders fix stuff faster than CD Projekt Red will ever do. CD Projekt Red is pulling a Fallout 76. I've been kind of eyeballing Fallout 76, and it's weird. It's kind of steadily making this come back in a way in the long term. We'll see, but yeah, they've also had some major missteps with trying to fix the game as well. But you are absolutely right that this is kind of turning into a Fallout 76 Bethesda situation. Now, John Doe says this, considering how terrible some of the gameplay choices are, this could be a blessing in disguise. And he is saying how, hey, you never know, it could be a good thing, again, that the lead gameplay designer has left. A lot of you guys actually agree with this. So a change of leadership might be a good thing, but again, this dude that left, he was so intimately familiar with the systems and the gameplay and things like that. That's what worries me. And he comes from The Witcher, which was an excellent game. So what happened there? I just think this game was far too ambitious, even compared to The Witcher standards. Now, also, Tennessee says, that goodbye message was really professional. Can't imagine how hard and forced that must have been to put out there. Good reason or not, the kind of critic these guys have gotten should not be acceptable. Let's hope he finds another job that isn't so stressful. Agree. Flameville says, well, we should know by now that when important people in important positions decide to jump ship, it usually means things haven't improved much and aren't going as well as we've been led to believe. Absolutely, I think that's a good assessment right there. So, again, we'll see what happens. I'll keep you guys updated, but right now, again, I'm in agreement with you all that this patch 1.2 so far, without seeing the full patch notes, is very underwhelming. I mean, it's supposed to be a big patch, so they better bring to the table something big with the full patch notes. They got to really impress. Thank you all so much for watching. Stay tuned for more Cyberpunk news updates, and I will see you all next time. Take care.